Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm awake, barely.
Good.
It's a start anyway, isn't it?
It is. It's a good beginning to almost anything. Being awake, being alive, and hey, it's like
all good things.
All very good things. Yes. Okay. Let's see.
I hung up my grape lady on the wall, and she really looks much better on the wall than she does in pictures.
Good. How big is that painting?
Excuse me?
How large is that painting?
It's 28 by 23 or 22.
Oh.
It's good size.
Mm-hmm.
The frame is big too, so it takes up a lot of space on the wall. The frame is, let's see, it's probably 8 inches bigger than the painting on all sides, or 4 inches on all sides bigger than the painting.
I'm having such a good time here. No. Well, today, try this again. Today, we are going to look at 2 different artists, neither of which you've probably heard of, but they have some interesting work. So we're going to see a video on one and kind of get the story, behind all of what went on with him. Okay. I'm trying to communicate with people as we speak. Good luck with that, right?
Oh, multitasking.
Oh yeah, always doing stuff like that. So anyway, and for right now, it's just you and me. So.
Oh really? Oh.
Well, yeah.
I was a little early.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We got a few minutes before we got to get started.
I've rearranged my studio area here over the weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's better.
Yeah, it helps every once in a while to go through stuff and organize, find out where things are.
My in-laws had a 6 foot long by 3 foot wide work table built. It's got drawers in it. It's got 4 big drawers in it.
Oh.
And then it's got 3 drop leaves, which can make it extended out to really, really large. And so I rearranged that thing so I can utilize the drop leaves on it more and have more places to put junk.
Oh, okay. Well, anything with drawers in a studio is good because,
yes.
You always have a lot of little stuff, laying around. I mean, that's kind of the thing up here.
Good morning.
Morning.
Always.
The thing working up here is I don't really have a lot of furniture. I have like a lot of little fold-out tables, but all my flat files and everything are too big to get up here. And even my really big easel, I can't get up that spiral staircase.
Oh.
So, there's a lot of boxes and just fold-out tables. There's 3 easels up here. 3 easels and a little what we call a donkey or a horse, for drawing.
Mhm.
you know, that I built. And that was really all the furniture I could get up here, you know. So,
How big a space is it up there?
oh, it's probably a good, probably 9 feet wide by about probably 24, 25 feet wide.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
it's not a small space. It's
Hey,
just,
Veronica.
yeah, it's just, to get here, you got to go up a set of spiral staircases.
Yeah.
You're not getting much up those. you know. You know, I've lived in several houses with those in them, and yes, they get you up and down. But if you're trying to get furniture up to someplace like that,
Yes.
yeah, you're not going to get much up there. You know, I mean, actually, I used to live in a place with the bedroom was up a spiral staircase, and I ended up getting a futon, you know, one of these Japanese beds that roll up.
Yep.
Yeah, to get upstairs. Because you couldn't get anything else up there. You couldn't get a regular bed up there. There's no way. So, anyway. But, you know, these are first world problems. What can I say?
Right.
So how is Eloise and Veronica? Eloise, I got your paintings, by the way.
I'm hanging in here.
Okay. Did you have a good weekend?
Good weekend, yes.
Okay.
You?
Me? Oh, yeah, I had a very good weekend. Spent a good part of it
and you absolutely
with my
right.
brother.
And so he'd be more apt because
We have a lot of loud voices in the background. Who is that?
Right, let me mute.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we got somebody on the phone or something. Anyway, yeah, so I went out to go hang out with my brother. You know, Friday evening and Saturday, and you know, and then Sunday, you know, spent here. You know, it was kind of a quiet weekend, you know, after hanging out with him. Not that he and I did anything terribly exciting either, but it was just kind of a nice, quiet time. And I have to confess, I didn't paint anything over the weekend.
Oh my goodness.
Good for you.
Wow.
Nothing.
Good for you.
Yeah.
I'm ashamed of you.
I know.
Example for us.
Yes, I know. How uninspirational can you get? You know, it's like, what did you do this weekend? Well, I didn't paint. So I was like, shame on me. Okay, I'll buy that one. The good news is though that I've got two really interesting artists for both of you all of you to both.
Yay, all of us.
You know, and I think, and they're very different from each other. You know, one is well, you would call him historical in the sense that he was painting in Paris, kind of in the post-impressionist era, though he is not considered a post-impressionist. But you know, he was kind of right on the verge of being what they would consider an expressionist painter. Anyway, we're going to look at his work, and then we're going to look at a contemporary artist, which I admire quite a bit. His name is Hollis Dunlap, and does some beautiful, very interesting work. And the thing I want you, and the reason I picked these particular two artists today was, in particular, I want you to look at their brushwork, how they apply paint to the surface. Neither of them are what you would call like really tight representational painters. Hollis Dunlap certainly is closer to that, but you know, and he's definitely a realist painter. But if you look at, you know, how he uses color and how he applies paint to the surface. It's, you know, it's much more direct and very interesting, actually. And as I said, he's a very young guy. He's probably now maybe in his 40s. But, you know, he's been doing some really good work for a long time. And always, you know, interesting compositions and subjects and things like that. So anyway, we're going to start off with an artist by the name of Haim Sultan was his name. And as I said, he was painting right at kind of the end of the post-impressionist era in Paris. And so we're going to watch a video on him first. And the reason I picked this video is I guess if you have to consider like a fairy tale story of an artist's career, he would be about the closest to, you know, kind of a fairy tale story. You know, literally from rags to riches, because, well, the video will explain it. Okay, so I don't have to do it for you. Anybody got any questions, anything we need to talk about before we jump into that?
No, just good morning to everybody.
Yeah, hi Armando, it's good to see you. Yeah. Oh, by the way, if you guys have been missing Richard has been having some computer problems, and I'm going to spend my afternoon with him trying to straighten them out, you know, via Zoom and online. Right now he's at a doctor's appointment. He's had some health issues going on as well too, but hopefully he'll be back later this week. And so, you know, you'll see his smiling face again. All right, so yeah, okay, there's 10 of us now. So let's see, we got Armando, Bernice, John, June is here, Bob is here, Betty Bates is here, Caroline, Caroline who? I don't know. Eloise and Veronica. Let's unmute Caroline. We haven't talked to her yet.
She left. Scared her away.
I guess I did. Wow. Yeah, she's like, gone. I'm not talking to you. Okay. Well, sorry about that. Anyway, so let's check out Haim and see what he has to say. So where are you? Yeah, right there. I think you'll find his work really interesting.
I'm glad to see Claudia. I hadn't seen her for a while.
Oh, did Claudia sneak in here? I didn't see her then.
Yep.
What about Lady?
Yeah, we haven't seen her, you know, in a bit either. She came in last week for just a little while. Okay. Anyway, away we go.
In December 1922, the famous American collector, Albert Barnes, came to Paris with the aim of enriching his collection of paintings. For 2 weeks, he went everywhere, accompanied by art dealer Paul Guillaume. Barnes went everywhere, saw everything offered by merchants, artists, admirers, and he bought, refused to buy, admired and criticized. He liked or did not like, he gained friends and made enemies. In Paul Guillaume's gallery, Barnes saw a picture of The Confectioner by Haim Sultan. He bought it and wanted to see other works by this artist. Guillaume took him to Leopold Zborowski, a seller of Amedeo Modigliani's paintings, who showed him the latest artwork.
17-year-old autistic college kid builds a device to rid the world of mosquitoes.
Wow. Okay.
Sick of mosquito and bug.
Works of Sultan to the collector.
Yeah, that might have been worth seeing.
Pictures were shining in colors, magnificent white, ultra yellow, blue, green, and particularly bright red colors were marvelous in their expressive, exciting force. These artworks were in no way inferior to the best paintings of French colorists. What a colour! I haven't seen anything like that. Albert Kuhn's Barnes earned a huge fortune in the pharmaceutical industry. Having the money, he was absorbed by painting and gathered a unique collection. By that time, he had already had more than 100 paintings by Renoir and about 50 artworks of Cézanne. For Barnes, all the doors in the art world of Paris were open. How did you say his name? It's Soutine, strange artist.
Soutine?
Wonderful. I'd like to buy it. And I'd like to see him here as soon as possible.
Donc Guillaume a dû...
Zobarovsky called Paul Guillaume and asked him to immediately find Soutine and bring him to Paris. Then Barnes brought the Soutine's paintings, 54 of them. Thus Barnes made Soutine a fortune.
Il a fait la fortune de Soutine.
Although the artworks were priced at a relatively small amount of about $3,000, but the fact of buying the entire collection, more than 50 paintings, of a young unknown artist by the largest collector of contemporary French art seemed so exceptional that all the Parisian art newspapers and magazines made some kind of sensation out of it. Traders and speculators on the art market rushed to buy Soutine's artworks. Prices for paintings soared from 300 to 15,000 francs. Thus his lucky hours began. My name, Haim, in Hebrew means life. Symbolically, it is not one, but several. The first, my life began in the small town of Smilovici, 30 kilometers from the provincial capital of Minsk, Russian Empire. I was the 10th child in my family. Nobody remembered my birthday. It was in winter, 1893. Let it be on January the 13th. My future was determined immediately after birth. I was supposed to be a tailor or shoemaker like my father. First of all, I was assigned to the local Jewish school, so I learned to read and write a little bit in Hebrew and learned some prayers, but I did not think about studying. I wanted to draw. One day I saw a butcher cut the throat of a goose and let it fully bleed. I wanted to scream, but I could not. The butcher looked so cheerful and it seemed to paralyze me. After all, I painted his portrait. The local butcher decided to avenge for such a daring escapade fool. Somehow he lured the boy to his shop and beat him so violently that young Haim had to stay in bed for a long time. Thus Haim's parents did not tolerate such a thing and filed a lawsuit against the abuser to the Kahal tribunal. Nothing could stop them. Nor did the fact that the uncle of the butcher was a respected rabbi, nor that Haim, as it was reminded to them publicly, violated religious rules. And the Jewish religion says that an image of a man was taboo, but the Jewish community was outraged by the cruelty of the oppressor, and he was forced to pay compensation, 15 rubles. The sum was a decent one for the time. The boy's parents decided to use the money to send their son to learn photography in Minsk. In 1907, there begins the second life of Haim. This time is in provincial Minsk, which by the early 20th century, with a population of about 100,000 people, had become one of the largest cities in the northwest region of the Russian Empire. In 1906, Minsk saw the opening of the School of Drawing of the artist Jacob Kruger, and in 1909, Haim Soutine was enrolled in the school, where he learned the first elements of drawing. Another student of the school was Michel Kikoin, his best friend. In the early 20th century, Minsk, despite its rapid economic development, culturally remained in the shadows of the nearby Vilna, recognized cultural capital of the region. Inseparable friends, Soutine and Kikoin, went there to continue their education in the Vilna Drawing School. But Soutine was not immediately enrolled in the school. On the first exam, he had to draw a cone, a cube, and a jar, but he was so nervous that he depicted the perspective incorrectly and failed. The way back to Minsk was so long, hopes to study at the school were high, and after a while he takes the test again, this time successfully. Soutine was enrolled in the school and became one of the best students. In drawing school, the friends met Pinchas Cremain, and the trio, as they were called, would be inseparable for many years. All three were soon in Paris. Paris, for immigrants from Jewish settlements, Paris has become not just a European city of culture and art, but most of all, a city of real freedom. In fact, they were born in a country where a Jew could easier move to Paris than to settle in St. Petersburg or Moscow, where lawlessness, constant fear of humiliation, violence and beatings reigned. In June 1913, Soutine was standing at Gare du Nord in the French capital. Haim came to the platform with a sack on his back and a few rubles in his pocket. Repeating only two words, Montparnasse and La Ruche, he finally, at late midnight, arrived to his friend Pinchas Cremain. Pinchas Cremain had already settled in La Ruche a year earlier. This strange house hosted several dozen unheated workshops.
Okay.
Famous artists began their
I
journey.
received your letter from your company
July
live
15th,
on your live
4 a.m.
line.
The friends sat on the pavement near the opera to take a turn.
So they said, let me call you back because maybe this system will be
the place
need an upgrade
decoration.
as soon as possible.
Mute yourself, please.
He said that if we fail to do something in a city like Paris, then we are in fact capable for nothing. We called Michel Kikoin.
What, do you need my phone number?
Summer of 1913 was the beginning of a new life for Haim Soutine. The registration card of the Paris Prefecture of Police, the nationality column, opposite the name of Soutine, contains an inscription, Russian. Soutine was lost for days in the Louvre. Near the old master paintings, Rembrandt remained idle for him for all his life. In the evenings, he visited drawing courses organized by Russian artist Maria Vasilieva Marevna. She recalled a nude model posed by the stove in one corner of the room, and Soutine was always sitting by the wall, behind all, hiding a piece of paper on which he painted. This habit was preserved permanently. He reluctantly showed his paintings, endlessly adjusting them.
Il n'était pas accepté, il parlait très mal français, il n'était pas très beau.
He spoke very bad French, adapted slowly. He had a very bad reputation, unspeakably bad manners, and he did not fit into society. In La Ruche, he actually did not have his corner and had to spend the nights first at one, then another friend. Sometimes the existence of Soutine was nearing the brink between life and death, and his paintings, which are both frightening and attractive, brilliantly display these moments.
L'art de Soutine est en fait très particulier. C'est un art qui est...
Soutine's paintings are something special. His art may seem violent, senseless, outrageous, and shocking, It can create the impression of an aggressive attitude of the artist to what he sees. But there is something in it that seemed to love Modigliani, namely the ability of Soutine to penetrate into the soul of a creative standing before him. This gives Soutine an unprecedented power, uncharacteristic of other artists. And the fact is, the more surprising because he'd adapted the style of expressionists. Soutine moved to city Falguière. It was the name of the workshops, built by Jean-Alexandre Falguière, whose reputation as a sculptor was quite thorough due to the sound orders. It was assumed that the workshops were to be occupied by his assistants. As often happened among the inhabitants of city Falguière, there appeared many completely unknown foreign artists, and Amedeo Modigliani lived and worked here. Soutine found refuge in the studio, which had been held by Oscar Michaninov, who arrived in Paris from Vitebsk back in 1907. And it was Oscar who introduced Soutine to Modigliani. In 1915, after several years of engagement in sculpture, Modigliani was back again in painting. He often portrayed Soutine by pencil sketches and oil.
Et finalement, c'est Modigliani qui va probablement repérer le premier son talent.
Modigliani was the first to see the talent in him. He believed in Soutine, supported him, helped and fought for him at the moments when all the others pushed him away. There was a story, it is very well known and speaks for itself. When Modigliani made his art dealer, Zobarovsky, promise to support Soutine if Modigliani dies. Zobarovsky, of course, did not fulfill the promise. The first thing that Zobarovsky did when Modigliani died, he got rid of Soutine, sent him to the south of France. There, Soutine was on the verge of suicide because he felt lonely and abandoned, without a penny. The truth was that Zobarovsky's wife hated Soutine, considered him a boor. She was a refined Polish aristocrat, but friendship of Modigliani and Soutine was really strong. January the 24th, 1920.
If you're a homeowner with a $100 or more electric bill, listen up. There is finally an affordable and...
Amedeo Modigliani died from tuberculosis. He was only 36 years old. And at that time, Soutine was in the south of France, in Serres, and did not go to the funeral. Zobarovsky's financial support was more than modest. Besides, Soutine was always dissatisfied with his artworks. Later, he would hunt specifically for the paintings created in Serres and will destroy almost all of them.
C'est probablement vraiment l'art, la peinture. Il n'était pas...
They were tied together by art painting. They both moved away from their social stratum. Each of them had his own circumstances. Modigliani came from an educated family, previously rich, but at that moment they experienced some financial difficulties. So when Modigliani arrived in Paris, his financial situation was difficult, and Soutine was simply poor. In 1923, Barnes included his purchased artworks of Soutine in a retrospective exhibition, starting from Daumier and to contemporary artists held in the gallery of Paul Guillaume, who then wrote the very first article about Soutine for the Arts of Paris. By the mid-1920s, the price of Soutine's paintings at the auctions already reached 22,000 francs.
Comme moi je suis expert et que je travaille dans les salles des ventes, je sais ce que les gens veulent de Soutine.
I am an expert and work there, where they sell paintings. And I know that people want to buy Soutine. What, for example, do they want to buy? Collectors and admirers want to buy his portraits. and necessarily with the hands depicted, because when you see the hands, you get into the spirit of the man. And when the hands are not shown, a picture is worth less. Curious, but it is.
C'est curieux, mais c'est comme ça.
Et quand il s'agit de portrait, l'expressionnisme est une vision qui consiste en quelque sorte à
As for portraits, expressionism accentuates the features of the individual to their disadvantage. One gets the feeling that they are aged on purpose. They look older than they actually are. There was a funny story when I was just starting to develop a theme. I had to meet and talk with Paulette Jourdan, who was a friend of Soutine and worked for Zobarovsky. She was a model of Soutine, and he wrote a portrait of her. She was 20 years old at that time. And then when I knocked on her door, she opened it to me. I've never seen her before. I was just amazed, because a woman who stood before me was 82 to 83 years old, but she was an exact copy of her portrait. Which Soutine wrote when she was 20. And during those split seconds when I looked at her, I realized the incredible ability of Soutine to stay ahead of time, to look into the human soul, to portray him with such precision and accuracy, like being able to see him after 6 decades. I was struck by the incredible talent of the artist.
C'est extrêmement troublant sur le plan de la capacité et du talent artistique.
Soutine spends much time in the south of France. Cagnes-sur-Mer, he meets Elie Foire, known art expert, author of History of Arts. He wrote the first monograph about Soutine. Foire was perhaps the first to call Soutine one of the great artists of the century. The first time in his life he has money. Outcast artist who is considered by Zobarovsky's wife to be a creepy and dirty man transformed into a dandy. He wore elegant shirts, ties or cravats of red silk, felt jackets with wide ribbon, and walked in front of dome or rotunda, pretending that he does not know anyone.
C'est que Soutine lui-même a passé sa vie à...
For all his life, Soutine, so to say, was covering his tracks. Make it so that no one knew about his origins. He said one thing to one people and other things to other people. Take, for example, the date of his birth. Some people heard one date from him, the others heard totally other things. Thus today we do not know the exact date of Soutine's birth. Some people were told that he was unhappy in France. The others heard that he was very happy. Throughout all his life he played a double game, as if he had split personality. It is difficult to understand his psychology because he was a tough man. After the death of Zobarovsky's spouse, the Castaings became the patrons of Soutine, and they essentially remained the sole stewards of Soutine's creations. From 1930 to 1935, every summer he came to the house of the Castaings in their estate in Lot, near Chartres, where they were a gathering of the artistic elite of France. Jean Cocteau, La Rochelle, and Eric Satie. The Castaings let Soutine stay alone on the entire top floor. The hosts not only had to endure the difficult character of Soutine, but they also tried to create all the conditions to enable his creativity. The Castaings' efforts were rewarded. Many of Soutine's works settled in their collection. In 1937, Soutine met Gerda Groth. They met in a café, Le Don. Gerda was a refugee an offensive status for a lady from a wealthy family of a furrier in Magdeburg, she approached Soutine and he allowed her to move into his apartments. By that time, Soutine often experienced attacks of peptic ulcer. At his apartment, she gave him a drink of heated mineral water to somehow relieve the pain and sat by his bed all night. After becoming a rich man, Soutine did not turn into a bourgeois. His inner life had changed little. The same spiritual thirst and pain burnt him. His life was full of suffering and terrible premonitions, and only painting helped to understand and overcome the pain. He constantly moved from one workshop to another, as if trying to escape from something and cheat fate. In 1940, the Germans invaded France and occupied Paris. The Vichy government ratified the law on the special status of Jews. In May, his girlfriend Gerda Groth was deported as a German Jew to a camp for displaced persons. She was released 3 months later, returned to Paris, but never saw Soutine again. At that time, Soutine in Paris met Marie Berthe Orange, the former wife of artist Max Ernst. She would be his last life companion. In 1941, the Vichy government passed a law for the mass deportation of Jews to concentration camps. In February, Soutine was renting a room on Orleans Avenue in Paris. He got on the list of residents from February the 15th, mentioned as Russian refugee, but with a side note, Jew.
Ces trois documents représentent les formulaires administratifs.
These 3 documents are administrative forms that were filled in the prefecture of police for foreigners. They were strictly required to come to the police station at the place of residence. Monsieur Soutine, who lived in the 14th arrondissement of Paris, had to tell the police his home address. This document is valid until February the 23rd, 19...
Guys, there are better ways to get your bush ready for summer.
The brand new Lawnmower 4.0 from Manscaped.
1943. And this is dated February 3rd, 1943. i.e., these are 2 identical documents. They were kept by the police department at the place of Soutine's residence. Paris was divided into departments by quarters. Everything was mapped out, and Soutine's documents were in good order. Note, recorded occupation is unknown. Although he was an artist, he was careful and never engaged in politics. In August 1943, there was a sudden aggravation of peptic ulcer, and urgent surgery was needed. Heim was taken to Paris via many detours to get to the surgeon, who agreed to do the surgery to a Jew. Unfortunately, it was made too late. On August the 9th, Haim Soutine died. There are pictures taken by the photographer Roger André immediately after the death of Soutine. The haggard face of the artist absorbed all the suffering of his life, all the fear and humiliations, and only a bouquet of white gladioli, his favourite flowers, was there as if it was representing his soul. I think that he, like all artists, suffered, was tortured by internal contradictions, and carried on his shoulders the load of psychological problems. So today it is very difficult to draw a reliable psychological portrait of Soutine. He was very ambiguous and restless personality, and it is not a negative characteristic. On the contrary, it is interesting. To date, for historians, and for me in particular, it is very difficult to find an authentic description of Soutine's personality, and it is unlikely to ever happen.
Okay.
I found it.
Hmm?
I found it in Google.
Oh. Well, yes, you can find him in Google. Okay. You can find him in lots of places. You know, fairly well-known artist now. What'd you guys think of that video?
There's still hope for me.
There's still hope for you. Yes. Yes. Well, yes, I could play the Grandma Moses video. That would give us all the hope. I mean, after all, she didn't kick in until about 88, you know, is when she started painting. And so, yeah, she had a good run there at the end. But Haim Saltine, he's an interesting character. But if you look at his career, you know, and it really only took one collector. That was it, just one. You know, and changed his world, you know, completely. You know, he was very much so out of favor with the whole Parisian establishment. And it was that one American collector, Barnes, who came, started collecting his work, and all of a sudden, you know, everybody wanted his work. And to have your work on average sell for, you know, let's say $300, you know, they were francs, but, you know, but let's say $300, and then go to $22,000 for the very same paintings is pretty incredible, you know. And the good news is that pretty much so from the time that Barnes started collecting his work, he pretty much so sold everything that he did for the rest of his life. And in fact, there was a waiting list for people to, you know, acquire work for their collections. So, you know, nice position to be in, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, all you have to do is find someone with a lot of money to do that for you.
Yes. Yes.
But not
You gotta stay alive. You gotta stay alive.
Yes. 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 Yeah, you have to do that part too. You have to stay alive.
I would not have been on his waiting list. I did not like his art. I think it showed his neurotic or schizophrenic personality, and it was disturbing to me. It was colorful, however. I like color.
Yeah.
But I did not like his work.
Right. Well, now, and understand, okay, when he was painting, it was after the post-impressionist era, and you know, at the time, it was the very early stages of what they called expressionism. Okay. Now in like Germany, you know, the Scandinavian countries, things like that, you know, they went into what they call abstract expressionism. And so there's a lot of people who don't really like that work, you know, but expressionist paintings in general, you know, if you go back and you kind of look at that broad category, you know, you have people like Lucian Freud, for example. And what they're painting, even though they're painting a portrait, they're not painting what they see. They're trying to capture the feeling, you know, the psychological interior of the person, and they're trying to express that, you know, within a painting. And oftentimes, yeah, it's not particularly flattering, you know. So, yeah, it's one of those things, you know, a lot of people don't particularly care for, but it's an interesting period of art. And the thing with his work in particular that I wanted you to look at, as I said earlier, was I really wanted you to look at the brushwork, how he used paint. In many ways, well, I call it very direct. Some people would call it crude, you know, because there's so much paint layered, and he would go back in and rework and really build up surfaces. And at a point in the process of painting, it kind of gets past the thing you're painting, and it really becomes a thing unto its own. You know, just the surface of the paint itself can be, you know, beautiful, or it can be, you know, rather harsh and kind of ugly. So anyway, I wanted you to look at that. Anybody in particular, you know, you said that you like the colors, right?
Yes.
Eloise?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have any particular opinions about his work? Like, dislike, or otherwise? And what did you either like or dislike?
Something I'm sure he doesn't try for me, when I try to paint a face, I try to do the best. You know, he just painting. I guess I should paint like that.
Yeah.
To go on details.
Yeah, I mean, again, you know, his goal was not to paint a flattering portrait. Okay. You know, that's not what he set out to do. What he actually set out to do was to try to more or less capture sort of the essence or the feel of that person, rather than a likeness. And Armando, you know, I don't see you as a portrait painter right now. Okay. You know, but that doesn't mean that you can't paint faces and figures and things like that. And as an artist, you're not obligated, you know, to try to paint them photographically. It's more about the feel of what you're after. So
I liked him. I liked his colors. I liked his movement. I liked you did feel that he was painting the essence of people. I mean, he just there was a lot of feeling in there. I liked him. He's kind of Van Gogh-ish like in some ways.
And in a lot of ways, yeah. And the thing is, if you look at his paintings, they're very, very active. You know, there's a lot of, you know, energy, you know, in those paintings. You know, you don't look at his paintings and feel this quiet, serene feeling. You know, there's definitely something going on there. There's a lot of things kind of churning around. And so.
I didn't quite understand the significance of the hands and being more valuable if the picture showed hands or not hands.
Well, again, you know, I think that was something for that period of time that people found those portraits where he showed the hands more expressive. It's kind of like if you look at like Egon Schiele's work, right? And, you know, the faces were very expressive, but, you know, when you got to see the whole figure and how sort of distorted and in many ways they looked almost painful, right? And that really added a whole totally different feeling to the work of art. Well, the same thing is true, I think, with Saltine. And it just makes it that, you know, that much more expressive than if he just painted a face. Okay.
I have a question. He seemed to put his paint on heavily, as did a lot of the artists of the day, or if they did or did not. My question is, how do you suppose they got their works to dry? Because oil takes a long time. It might take 6 months or 2 weeks.
Well, it takes about, depending on how much paint you put on there, it may take 6 months to a year to dry all the way through. See, because you have to remember, oil paint dries not just from the front surface, it dries from the back as well. And so what happens is over time, you know, as you apply paint, that paint in the middle can stay soft for a very long time. That can be, you know, to your disadvantage in the long run, technically, if you want to talk about it and how to apply paint. But a lot of them didn't worry about that. You know, a lot of them, you know, and in his case, he would go back in and he would rework paintings many, many times. And he always used very heavy direct paint. He didn't thin the paint. He didn't do any glazes or anything. He would mix a color or use, a lot of times he might go back in and he might put down a big block of color, and then he would take other color and directly brush into it, and really lay it on very, very heavily, you know. And as far as reworking it, he would just wait a few days until that particular surface was dry enough that he could then go back in and, you know, paint over it.
So do you think he presented his patrons with wet paintings?
Well, I'm sure he did. Yeah, I'm sure that many of those paintings sold long before they were ever really totally dry.
Mm.
And if you, they did a couple of close-ups of some of the surfaces and things. And did you notice that in a lot of those cases, you saw a lot of the crackling of the paint?
Mm.
You know, the paint was not, you know, I mean, there were areas that, you know, seemed relatively flat, right? But then you saw fissures and other color coming out from underneath. And that's a direct result of having all that paint on there and having those layers in the middle not dry. And as it dried over time, you know, paint will continue to expand and contract as well as the canvas or whatever the surface you put it on. You begin to get these, you know, fissures and cracks in them. You know, and you see a lot of that, you know, in his work. You know,
so did that add value, you think, because they had all of that?
No, it doesn't necessarily add value, and it doesn't really detract from it either. It's you know, it's just kind of a clue as to the process that he went through and the fact that he was very much so a very direct painter. You know, very unlike somebody like Caravaggio or Da Vinci. You know, I mean, their paintings are 500 years old now. And yes, you do see some cracking and fissuring over time because the paintings have expanded and contracted. But, you know, in like Caravaggio's paintings, they were put on in such thin layers and built up so slowly over time that, you know, probably out of all of the late Renaissance painters, Caravaggio's technically are probably some of the most stable paintings out there, you know, because it's this very uniform film of paint that was put on very, very slowly and very meticulously. And they're very pristine, you know. Same thing is fairly true with Da Vinci's as well. But, you know, once you get into even academic painters, or, you know, past the academic painters, and you get into Impressionism and into most modern painters, you know, most of those paintings were done, you know, what you would consider relatively quickly. Now, when you say relatively quickly, I mean probably 6 months to a year that they were working on those paintings and still layering paint on there. And just the nature of oil paint, depending on how you use it, whether you use it very thin and put down, you know, very thin flat layers, or whether you use it very directly, would have a lot of impact on how the paint dried over time and what that surface looks like now. So,
but we consider, I think, if we see that crackling as a flaw in the painting now, I would. And I've had to sand it out.
Well, you know, if it ends up in some place you don't want it, yeah. But if it's a fairly uniform thing all over the painting, then yeah, it's just the aging of the paint. You know, when you think about contemporary painters, and particularly like people, for example, like Jackson Pollock, right? They're having a horrible time with his work, you know, trying to preserve it. And one was because he used very cheap materials, okay, that were untested, you know, because he used a lot of like latex oil paint and house paint. That's what he painted with.
Mm.
You know, even after he started making like really good money for his paintings, he still used like, you know, stuff that you'd get out of the hardware store that was never designed to last for this long period of time. And so his paintings are literally falling apart, you know, at this point. And they're having a hard time, you know, preserving his paintings. But, you know, a lot of the artists out of, say, the 1940s, 1950s, 1960s, they're having a problem with all of them, you know, because just by the nature of most artists, and particularly artists who are not commercially successful in selling a lot of work, you know, in their early careers, they're going to buy whatever they can afford or get their hands on to paint with or make art with, you know. And so, you know, that's always going to be a problem. You know, it's kind of like Edgar Degas. You know, we have a lot of respect for Degas, but a good percentage of the paintings that he did, and particularly the things that he did from life, say at like the horse races and stuff like that, they were done on the back of drawing pads. And it's oil paint. And there was no gesso, there was no prepping the surface or anything. You know, those were direct, you know, oil paint directly on the back of those drawing pads. And it's just chipboard. That's all it is. Now, of course, chipboard at that time was better quality than the chipboard that we have on the back of drawing pads today by a little bit, but it was still very acidic. And it wasn't, you know, it wasn't archival. It wasn't going to last. And he, you know, he never thought of them as something that was going to be collectible or that people would ever want. They were, you know, studies for himself. That he would go to these racetrack, you know, events and things, and he would, you know, do quick sketches. It was practice. But they ended up being in museum collections, you know. So you know, you're always going to run up against, you know, issues like that. And the thing I have to say, after you know, living with somebody who was a conservator, you know, she, you know, if they want to find a way to preserve it, they will. Mm-hmm. One way or another, you know, it will be saved if it's of historical value. You know, they have so many ways these days of neutralizing acids and different chemistry, you know, in a lot of the paint surfaces and the paint itself, that, you know, if it's a highly valued piece of work, it'll be preserved. So, really, yeah. So yes, times have changed a little bit, you know. Now, whether they're ever going to figure out how to save Pollock's work or not, I guess we'll wait 20 years and see. You know, you may be starting to see a lot of that stuff come down and not being shown because, yeah, you just can't preserve it. But, you know, we'll find out. Yeah.
That was one example of how art lovers or art collectors manipulate the price of art to their own benefit. And I know that was just one story, but there's a lot of stories out there how they will take an artist and find his collection and do similar to what they did. And then their price, they'll have the majority of the collection out there. They'll probably buy 50% of it or more. And then other people want it and their price will go up for their value. And they can sell theirs for an enormous amount of money and hold on to it for them. I would want to call it genius to do that, you know. But that's the way it went. I mean, I knew they were doing that. That was their reason for looking all over to find a certain kind of artist with a certain type of collection, I think.
Well, you know, I think if you look at the art market, beyond the artist creating the work that they do, okay? Yes. Once it leaves the artist's hand and it goes into a gallery or some kind of venue where the artwork is for sale, At that point, it's purely financial.
That's right.
Yeah, purely financial. And there's a couple of rules of thumb, you know, for collecting art. A, don't ever buy anything you don't like and you don't want to live with. And then number two, you know, don't ever count on it actually being of any great value, because you never know. The art market is extremely volatile. And it's just like the stock market. You know, you can buy something, you know, from a very well-known, reputable artist who's highly collected today. 30 years from now, that artist will be totally out of fashion and their work will have very little, if any, real value. It doesn't matter what it sold for 30 years ago. It could be, you know, it could have sold for a couple of $1 million like 30 years ago, and now today you couldn't get, you know, $200,000 out of the same thing. You know, it's really that volatile. Actually, I just watched a really, really fascinating documentary about the art market and particularly the collection of antiquities. And, you know, with all of the different wars, war zones and things around the world, particularly like Afghanistan, the Middle East, parts of Africa, there's so much ancient art being smuggled out of, you know, those parts of the world into Europe right now. And there's a huge effort.
And so much was destroyed.
Well, they're destroying a lot of the sites. And in the beginning, you know, just one particular group of people, the Taliban, for example, they were destroying like a lot of ancient Buddhist art and stuff in Afghanistan that dated back 6,000 and 8,000 years ago. But they've wised up. They've got smarter. It's like a lot of that stuff that they were blowing up, they've stopped blowing up because now what they're doing is they're robbing a lot of graves. They're digging through like a lot of these archaeological sites. They're extracting all of the valuable art out of them and putting it on the black market and selling it to finance. In fact, that's one of the big international struggles right now, is that a lot of these terrorist organizations are smuggling all this art, you know, out of these regions, and all of the sales end up going back to them, and that's how they finance, you know, their terrorist organization. It's art collectors, you know, and they're getting millions and millions of dollars, you know, for these antiquities, you know, and then using it, you know, for nefarious purposes. So it was a fascinating documentary. And it makes you wonder, you know. But, you know, Claudia brought up a point, you know, which is, you know, the people who are collectors, you know, are often engaged in manipulating the markets, you know, to their own advantage. You know, and the, you know, group of collectors internationally is actually really, really small. It's not a huge community of people, and a lot of them know each other and they know each other's collections, and you know, so they'll buy and trade between each other, not on the open market, and keep raising the price. Another thing that they do often, in this particular documentary was talking about, that they'll take something that was acquired illegally and they'll trade it back and forth between themselves and give it a provenance. You know, it was in this collection and that collection. You know, after it goes through 3 or 4 different collections or 3 or 4 different galleries, it begins to gain some legitimacy to it. And at that point, then people stop asking questions of how it was, was gathered or where the money had gone to, you know, or who benefited from the sale of it. So yeah, that's an interesting discussion all in itself. We could spend literally weeks talking about nothing but the art market and how it's manipulated. So anybody got any questions or anything what we're talking about? Okay, I'll stop babbling. I'm gonna start. I'm gonna share with you the next artist, and what I want you to do in this particular case is I want you to look at the similarities, not in the artwork, but in how they use paint. You know, color and how they kind of lay in color and with the brushwork, stuff like that. And let me know what you think, okay? Now, the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to the website for Hollis Dunlap. Okay. Okay, everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay. So we don't have like a 3-minute delay today?
No.
Good, okay. You know, so this is his website. And so this is, you know, probably a pretty current painting. We'll just go to paintings. And, you know, he's got a lot of them. Mainly he does a lot of figurative work, okay? And I'm just gonna kind of scroll through here and let you kind of get a look at the compositions and the use of color. And then I might open 1 or 2 of them up and then try to enlarge them and really zoom in on them and look at like the paint surface and how he treats, you know, paint surfaces. Like for example, let's do this one. And I wonder, oh no, this isn't really gonna let me zoom in on these. Okay, so we'll just look at some of the compositions and things. But look at the use of color in the flesh tones. You know? I mean, he's not necessarily trying to stay absolutely accurate and true to those flesh tones. You know, he's using color and the shift in temperature and value to, you know, create this illusion of form in his paintings. And then he's using, you know, some very direct painting and very, you know, layered surfaces.
I'm fascinated by his backgrounds. They're separate painting in themselves.
Mm-hmm. Well, and in a sense, you know, if you begin to look at them, it's an abstract composition with a representational figure.
Right. Mm.
Okay. So, you know, he's giving you something more or less convincing, you know, in the sense of, okay, it's a relatively accurately drawn and painted human figure, even though the color is very interpretive with them. And then around them, everything is very simplified and abstracted and very much so paint, you know, paint surface for the sake of paint surface, you know, just, you know, paint for the beauty of itself.
Dunlap.
Yeah,
amazing how he blends the flesh on various colors, but it kind of blends it so that
but
you can see the transition.
Yeah, well,
some of it.
Yeah, we'll look at that in a little bit.
That's different though.
Yeah, because the fact is he doesn't do a lot of softening and blending of edges. In fact, this particular piece, if you get up close and personal, you know, to his paintings and really look at how he applies paint, it's very much so very direct, just about like this. And it's really that he's putting one mixture of color down next to the other, and he's controlling the transition of value and temperature.
Okay, that's what I'm talking
So
about.
carefully that he's not really blending edges or softening anything. You know, they're all very painterly. And this is a pretty good example, you know, of what, if you get up close on any of these faces and hands and things, that's basically what they look like. You know, they're very kind of, you know, paint patches, you know, colored.
That could be a good paint by number painting.
Yeah, yeah. I think I've got this painting, you know, in the queue that I can blow up and we can look at. Hopefully we have a large enough image that we can get in nice and close and look at the paint surface on them. But one of the things I really admire about his work is, you know, how direct it is, you know, and, you know, he's not trying to give you any kind of illusion, you know, where he's softening and, you know, he's not doing a Bouguereau. That is not what he's doing at all.
Oh.
Bouguereau? Do we all know Bouguereau's work? Classical painter.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, all the surfaces on Bouguereau were so smooth. I mean, it's like a sheet of glass. There's not any kind of relief on Bouguereau's paintings whatsoever. But again, you know, the figures are very accurate, and then the backgrounds are very abstract.
He did a lot of nudity, especially in men's.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he does all kinds of things, really.
Oh, still alive. I haven't found that. I just looking at his.
Well, that's what we're doing right now is we're looking at his paintings.
But I go faster than you.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you might want to slow down. Take a little bit of time to really look at him. Yeah. You might learn something from him.
Ooh, that one I don't like.
Which one? You don't like the still life?
The say for love to the art is a nudity picture on an old lady. That one.
Oh. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So here's some outdoor landscape type paintings. Again, you know, very direct, but you know, good control over, you know, the mixture of color and how he lays the color down, one color next to another or one paint stroke next to another. And it's just that subtle change in value or temperature. Let's go look at some of the older works. Yeah. And then we'll kind of get into the queue and go through a lot of them. Now, you know, when he first started out, he did what I would consider some fairly tight representational paintings. And then as time has gone on, he's really, you know, loosened up his brushwork and stuff. And I really like it much, much more now, you know, than when he was trying to be very tight and academic, you know. But, you know, if you look at, you know, just the layering of paint in here, you know, just a really beautiful, you know, application of paint. And notice how the actual paint strokes move in the direction of the form. Okay? You know, he's actually trying to, even though he's making multiple paint strokes, you know, around like this shoulder or around the rib cage and things, you know, he's laying them down, but he's always moving in the direction, you know.
He's just looking to herself.
What?
Nothing.
Okay. All right. So anyway, you know, that's his website, and you know, I mean, this is a landscape. Okay. Very, very abstract. You know, very simplified. but really nice use of color and kind of fun stuff if you're a painter and you like pushing paint around.
Well, he paints better than me.
Probably better than all of us, except Charles.
Yeah, yeah, he's a good painter. He really is. So here's some things that I had downloaded, and I've got some examples of his approach to drawing, as well as his approach to painting. And so, and we talk about this a lot, when we get into the drawing classes and stuff. He's laying in kind of these big, broad passages of value. But for the most part, he's trying, and again, I don't know how long this drawing was. This could have been a 20 or 30 minute, or an hour long drawing. I would suspect probably close to 45 minutes to an hour. But, he's really trying to use the material and again, trying to move in the direction of the form, as he lays in those values overall. Now let's see how successful we are at blowing these up. Not bad. Okay. All right. So, when you begin to look at the paint surface itself, and you begin to see the brushwork, and just, it's kind of those subtle changes in value. And notice how, in those like really bright, direct lights, how he's really layered in the paint, quite directly, very thick. And, he's not blending out the edges. He's not taking the time to model, the form even. He's letting the change in color and value do that for him, to create all these subtleties, in the form itself. And then again, when he gets into the background area, he gets even more direct and really kind of uses it to describe the direction or the form of the surface itself.
So you think he makes a sketch of what he's going to do first, and then he can know where he's going to lay that paint down as far as how it's going to follow the form?
Well, Claudia, and we've talked about this many times. Most of these people that you're looking at, this isn't the first time they painted that painting. They went through a very long process to get to the final painting itself. So yes, they did several drawings. They did different compositional studies. They did some color roughs, and then they went into the final painting. They knew where they were going to go. They had resolved, I would say, probably 90 to 95% of the issues in the painting before they ever put the first brushstroke down on this final canvas. Which, if you look at the volume and the amount of work that he produces, and just realizing that you're seeing less than probably 5 to 10% of it, he's busy. He's busy doing a lot of preliminary work, before he ever gets into, the finals. So. But I'm trying to remember where I downloaded these from, but they're really actually very good images. And they really do give you a good sense of the buildup of paint and the directness, to the work. Yeah, we saw this painting on his website.
This one is good.
Yeah. Very good. Again, you know, just look at this, just a little bit of variation. And, you know, we're at the focal point of the painting, right? And so, again, you know, it's like the highest degree of contrast, the highest degree of not only in value and temperature, but also, you know, in hard, soft edges. You know, see how he loses edges in here, and then he sharpened everything up like right, it's kind of like right in here. You know, everything is pretty crisp. Everything over here is much softer, you know, because that's really the focal point right there. Like from the corner of the mouth area through the side of the nose and the eye socket. And that's his focal point. See, everything else is very painterly. You know, no hard, real crisp edges for the most part.
The detail of the face are very good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you see all the olive kind of greens and maybe a little bit of purple and, you know, the variation of color in his flesh tones. And look at the difference in intensity between like the cheek area and all the colors in there. And the colors haven't changed much on the neck other than he's grayed all of those back quite a bit. You know, he's really muted everything down. And he hasn't made it appreciably darker. You know, he hasn't changed the value. He's changed the intensity and the temperature. You know, he's cooled those very same colors that are up here. He's cooled them off and he's lowered the intensity so that the neck and the shoulder sink back and that the cheekbone, the nose, the front plane of the face move forward. Now this is a self-portrait. Yeah. Look at the paint surface, you know, and how he used the paint surface, you know, with the hands. See, he just suggests that there's a hand there. You know, you see the shape of the thumb and this finger, and then the rest of it, you know, there's really nothing there. It's just a change in value. But it suggests that there are fingers there. Anyway, nice stuff, you know, nice painterly surfaces. See a nice variation in color. And really, you know, controlling the color and the value. See, if you squint your eye down, there's really only two things that really emerge out of that background. You know, there's a lot of stuff back there in the background, but when you squint your eye down, it all kind of goes away. The only thing really, you know, popping out is really the figure, you know, primarily the hip and the leg and this blue, you know, towel or whatever it is over the back of the couch. That's it. Everything else is way, you know, really kind of turned way down. So it just kind of falls back in the light. A really nice example. Now, Bernice, where are you?
I can see her picture, but now.
Bernice.
I'm here. I was on mute.
Okay.
I'm here.
Okay. Look at the folds.
Okay.
See? You know, Really pretty, really, you know, pretty simple. See, there's a light, there's a mid-tone, there's a dark. See? So your dark, your mid-tone, your light. And see, he creates a form in there. And he describes the shapes, you know, of those folds.
But there are a few colors between all that light and mid-tone and dark, though, isn't it?
Well, there's the dark itself here, and that's all. That might be, you know, that might be several colors.
Yeah.
Though this looks like it probably all pretty, you know, homogeneous. But then he goes into the mid-tone, this gray area, right? See, but then he takes a little bit of this, you know, the dark, and not quite as dark, and he brings it up here, and see, he creates the secondary fold in here, right?
So
But if you,
that's how you end up being with not so many colors.
yeah, but if you squint your eye down, see, you know, this whole area becomes kind of a mid-tone, except for right there,
Right.
which is almost as dark as that, right? Almost. They're not exactly the same. And then look at the light over on this side. And the light isn't like a highlight. It's not like white. It's not like over, like in this area right here. See, it's still got a lot of color in it, a lot of blue, right? But it's still a much lighter value than these. The other thing it's got going for it is, you see the intensity of the color is much more intense here. Once it falls into the shadows, he's muted all the colors down. Even though they're pretty much of the same color. You know, it's all blue. It's all that same mixture of blue. But he's made a variety of them. The same can be true, you know, with the shirt. You know, between the light, you know, the midtones, and then the shadows. So it's really more about value than it is about anything else. And again, the focal point, go out. You know, the focal point in this painting, if you really look at it, is kind of like from the head, you know, down to the hand, and then across the arm, and then back up to the head. So it's a triangle right in there. You know, that's really the focal point of the painting. And all the rest of this, you know, there's a lot of stuff back there. There's at least the suggestion of a lot of stuff back there. But, you know, he doesn't paint it in a representational way to render, you know, a metal container or a pot or a cup or anything back there. He just gives you little hints that it's back there and you can make out of it whatever you want. So. This is probably, I'm guessing it's probably a life study. But again, you begin to look at these and not a great deal of blending. Okay, he's using the paint, and it's wet paint into wet paint. You know, he's not letting it totally dry. So he keeps working those surfaces, keep working color and stuff in until he gets it the value and temperature and intensity that he wants. And notice how, you know, look at all the beautiful color, you know, and the work, you know, the brush work and stuff, you know, in the face itself, which is the focal point. And then immediately he falls off, you know, to the shadow on the neck. And it's just, you know, it's just a value, just, you know, and it's not, it looks like a fairly early layer of paint that he hasn't gone back in and done much to. It's just a suggestion that the neck is there, and that then the shirt collar and, you know, parts of the clothing, you know, start kind of coming out. And then, of course, you know, he's pulled the fingers and the hands with that staff. forward. So. Anybody got any comments?
No.
About what you're looking at? You know, how he's going about, you know, accomplishing those paint surfaces and things? So you can see where, you know, he's layered this paint. And, you know, he probably got 3/4 of the way finished with this painting. You know, or probably, you know, like 80%, 90% done. And then he let it set up, you know, and dry so that he could come back in with these, you know, really heavy, you know, very direct paint passages, you know, for the highlights in here. And just kind of pop those in there. And that was like the last, you know, the last step in that painting was just getting those highlights in there. Really just kind of heighten the form and the contrast.
How big would this, you expect this painting might be, just out of curiosity?
He doesn't really paint very large. I mean, I think a lot of his paintings are probably under like 20 by 30.
Okay.
You know, I mean, I think that's kind of like maybe one of the largest, you know, paintings that I've ever seen him do was around that 20 by 30 size range. A lot of these are, you know, 14 by 18, 16, 20, 11, 14. You know, they're not very big. And in that sense, you know, he kind of goes against the grain of a lot of modern painters. And he kind of falls into that category of what you call contemporary realist. A lot of contemporary realist painters paint fairly small. You know, when you start looking at a lot of modernist paintings, like things that are like more abstract type things, they need that scale. You know, they need that size to really kind of command a presence. And, you know, the thing that's really nice about a lot of contemporary realist paintings are they can really be quite small and very kind of intimate and personal. And you have to get up, you know, when you see them in a museum or a gallery or something like that, you got to get up fairly close and personal, you know, to really see them. But they're, you know, beautifully painted. This is a, you know, a really nice paint surface in this, and I've got a close-up with this that we can really zoom in on. And I mean, you get right down to it. Look at the use of how he laid, you know, again, it's just patches of paint, one color laid next to another. And is there any white in there?
Darn little.
No, I mean, there's none. There is no white, you know, at all. Okay. It is white, you know, out of the tube mixed with a yellow, a red, you know, it's always got some color in it. You won't, you know, I mean, even when we looked at a painting back here, well, this lady's dress is a great example, okay? You know, you would look at that and go, oh, it's a white dress. Really start looking at those. That isn't white. You know, that's white with a little bit of yellow. You know, this is white with a little bit of blue or gray. This is kind of white, maybe, yeah, it's got some color in there, maybe green or yellow green, a little bit. And again, it's those little subtle shifts, but there is no straight white right out of the tube on any of this. See, that's something I keep, pushing you guys on, because in a lot of your paintings, I'll see where you'll just go to like straight white, you get a highlight. Even highlights have color, they're not straight white. Okay? There is no straight white anywhere in his paintings. Okay? Because it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist in nature, The only thing that's ever going to be even close to white is a light source. If it's not emanating light, it's not going to be white. Yeah. Now, here's a good example. Claudia?
Yes.
Okay. You see this? Okay.
Yes.
Probably a plein air painting, right?
Yes.
And so it served as the study for studio painting.
Uh-huh.
See?
Uh-huh.
Same composition, same place. This was probably done in the studio. This was probably done in the field. Okay?
Okay. Well, one looks much more finished, so.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, when you're out and you've been there, if you're down by the river or something, you're slapping paint down as fast as you can just to try to get some, some sense of what was going on there with the light and the atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get back to the studio, probably the biggest mistake that, most people make, and I've made it too, I do it, is that you put that plein air painting up there on the easel and you keep adding paint to it, instead of just letting it be what it is and putting a new canvas up there and then doing a more finished painting and using that as your guide for color and value. So.
That feels cold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very, very muted. Yeah, very, very cool temperature overall, except for that little bit of warm light.
Like back there.
So. Same thing here. Overall, all the colors are pretty cool in temperature. Even these reds have been, cooled down and muted quite a bit, so that the warmer temperatures, in the glass and the beer bottles can really pop forward. If he would have made that probably as strong a red as he probably saw that, or thought he saw it, when he was looking at it, it wouldn't have worked. Because this would have all jumped forward of these. But you see, he's very deliberately controlled the shift in intensity and temperature, in that painting. And I can't emphasize to you guys enough how much time that takes to figure that stuff out. You really got to look at it. It does. It just takes time.
So when you're looking at you kind of lay it out on the canvas. Mm-hmm. But while you're looking at it, you also are determining what you're going to kind of like bat out, or kind of like get it so that what's going to be the focal point, and make sure that nothing else overcomes that, like the chimney you were talking about.
Well,
even though the chimney, he would see the chimney as really bright and red, he's going to subdue that and let the bottles be the one that's going to be the focal point and come forward.
Yeah, let's go back and look at that. My answer to you would be this. I think, can we find it? Where did it go? That was after all that. Well, beer bottles, where are you?
Right there. You passed them up. Up one more.
Oh, right here. Yeah. Okay. To answer your question, again, this is a final studio painting. So he painted that probably 6 or 8 times.
Oh God.
and well, I mean, you know, little studies and thumbnails and things like that, thinking about the different aspects of that, so that when he got to the final painting, he knew what he was going to do here. See? Because if he actually tried to paint that from life, you know, and actually do it, he probably would have seen that as a brighter red, and you know, put it down there, you know, in his study. And then days, weeks, hours later, when he had that sitting up there, you know, that initial study up there, and then maybe he did 3 or 4 other color studies, played with the intensity, played with the temperature of things, you know, he finally came down to a solution and incorporated all those things that he had found out about it into this final painting.
Okay.
Again, you know, it's, you know, we would all like to think, you know, gee, I'm just going to get up there and I'm going to start throwing paint and make this beautiful finished painting, and it will just all magically work. And the fact is, it very, 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 very rarely does. You know, it's usually your 4th, your 5th, your 100th attempt at doing something, you know, before you figured it all out. So, you know, now as you know, he's doing such a volume of work that a lot of the things that he's applying in one painting, you know, he carries over to another. And, you know, I think one of the most enlightening things that, you know, some of my teachers said at the Academy of Art when I was going to school said was that it's not knowing what to put in, it's knowing what to leave out. That makes all the difference in your painting.
Abstraction.
Yeah. Well, in a sense, I mean, you know, look, he's got a lot of stuff in this painting. He's got a big rock. He's got all this grass. He's got these plants. He's got all this water, the sky, the background, okay? There's a lot there to deal with. And you got to make choices. You got to make choices about how am I going to, yeah, I want to suggest where this is, you know, these trees, you know, but really what I want you to look at is, I really want you to look at the light, you know, on these 2 tree trunks. That's the focal point. That's where I want you to look. I want you to get past this rock. I want you to get past all this grass and all these plants and everything else back here. Yeah, there's water back there, but I don't want it to be that important. You know, same thing with the background. You know, yeah, I want to leave some sense of light and shadow, you know, on the landscape itself. But yeah, I don't want you going back here in the background and looking at that. That's my hero right there. These 2 tree trunks. And so he had to be very deliberate about how he painted those so that you could get to just the beauty of the light on those surfaces. Because believe me, you know, there's enough there to distract you, you know, and make you look at any and everything else. See?
So is there always just a little bit more light on the focal point?
Not always. No, in fact, sometimes the focal point is not even in the light. You know, sometimes it's in the shadow. Again, it's about, you know, how you construct the painting and wherever the most contrast is. And contrast can be value, but it could also be temperature. It could also be hard and soft edges. right?
Yeah.
If everything in the, let's say that you have an overall dark painting, right? And that there's really, you know, like it's, let's say the whole painting runs from a number 10 value to like about a number 4 at the very lightest, right? And there's no, you know, no distinct, you know, real hard contrast anywhere in value. One of the ways that you could draw the eye is by using a shift in temperature, you know, generally warmer colors against cooler colors, or a hard edge against everything being very soft, see? All you need is one type of contrast. That's it.
Now, you know what I'm not feeling in that painting? I'm not feeling the water.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like the water is unfinished, or it's not looking like water.
Yeah, he's not trying to paint all the little ripples and stuff. He's giving you the idea that there's water that's reflecting the sky. So he's just put a similar color there. It's generally darker and a little more intense because it's closer to us than the sky. But he hasn't done any fancy brushwork or anything in there to describe reflections or ripples or, you know, it's just, no, there's a body of water back there.
Could we get away with that in your class?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Yeah. No, you could get away with it in my class as long as, you know, you did this, you were very conscientious about where you put that focal point.
Oh, okay.
It seems like that blue, though, is a little more intense. I mean, my eyes are shifting from the tree trunks back to the blue. Regularly. So, I mean, it seems to me it's too much contrast there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I would tend to agree with you. I mean, it's a little more intense than I would have liked it. Okay.
Yes.
But I understand why he did it, and it's again because he's trying to suggest that it's the water reflecting the color of the sky up here. And so anytime that you have a sky and then you've got fairly smooth, water without a lot of motion and waves and stuff in it, it's pretty much so going to reflect the color of the sky. And whatever's going on up there, you know, clouds, whatever, it's going to be like a mirror.
But it also has to have some kind of reflection of the tree, even if it's just a little bit, in the fact that it's casting a little shadow or something on the water. I mean, it's being reflection on the water, a little bit, not much.
Yeah, but he doesn't really do that there very much. There's like no indication of the reflection of any of the color from the bank or the trees in the background. It's pretty much so. He's treated it kind of like a flat area. Again, he's giving you this suggestion that it's water and that it's reflecting the color of the sky here. But what he's done is he's made it a slightly darker value than what he put in the sky, and more intensity because, again, it's closer to us. And if you really look at skies and water, you know, particularly like really smooth water, if I went down here to the lake on a nice calm day, I mean, it really is like a mirror, but the color in the water is more intense. You know, the blue and even the contrast in value and everything is more intense than what you're going to find in the sky. They're not going to be the same. So.
Is that the way it's supposed to be, or that you're just saying that's the way it is on this picture?
No. That's the way it's supposed to be. Because, I mean, that's really what happens. Is if you go down.
The water should be more intense than what it's being reflected by?
Well, what it's reflecting. Yeah, because usually it's reflecting the sky. And so the water is always going to be slightly darker, about 1 or 2 values darker, and the intensity is going to be more intense than, you know, the sky itself.
I didn't realize that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I'm just looking at how the light is reflecting on the trees and where that light source is coming from.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not trying to figure out how that works with the water.
Mm-hmm. Well, look at the rock, and then look at the cast shadow.
I see that.
Yeah, and then there's evidently some cast shadows from some other trees and things over here.
Yeah.
And so you got a little bit of patch of light kind of filtering through the trees right there and onto these tree trunks. And then once you get up to about this point, pretty much so these tree trunks are falling back into shadow from the foliage, that's being, the shadows being cast, onto the upper part of those tree trunks from the foliage that's on the trees or trees around them.
Mm-hmm.
See, so it gave him an opportunity to really go in there and just focus all the light and contrast right in here, on those two tree trunks. See, he didn't do it over here on this third tree.
Mm-hmm.
It's completely in shadow.
So maybe that's why the water is a little darker right in there, because it's kind of like shaded.
Yeah.
The lighting sources make that a little darker.
Yeah. Well, if you notice, the lightest part of the water is really kind of like right here in the middle, and it gets darker as he moves to the edge here, and darker as he moves, to the edge there. So.
Oh well.
So it's not all, it's not just one flat blue in the water either.
Yeah.
But he hasn't done a lot to really describe, like I said, really much in the surface of the water. He's really simplified it quite a bit. Yeah. I'm just going to kind of thumb through these real quick because we're getting close to the end.
Yep.
But, I want you to just, well, I mean, okay, there's a canvas. That's a pretty good sized painting right there.
It is.
I've never seen one that big by him before. I've seen a lot of his work at different shows and things like that. But yeah, I've never seen one that big. That's got to be a good, probably 40 inches, 40 to 48.
This is if I had to sit on the floor while he's painting me down. I see he has a little rocking chair there.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, I would say while he was painting that, he's probably not doing a lot of sitting.
You got to get on his knees or something.
Yeah, well, he's probably, on his feet a lot. Yeah. A lot of times standing. I'm working on something that big. Yeah. Actually, this is one of my favorite paintings of his. It's very moody, very kind of mysterious. You see the second figure back there?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. And it's just, there's a tension.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, there's a tension to this painting.
Yeah.
It's really lovely.
Yeah. You can tell by just the way their body is standing. So, and the look on her face, and nothing on his, and the back is in shadow, so that's it.
Yeah.
You can read a lot into that.
Yes, you can. Yeah, again, this is, this doesn't have, even though there's two figures, for some reason, there's not the same interaction. There's not tension between them.
That's true. The other one has tension in it.
Yeah, and see, again, suggestion of a second figure. So, and so, you can add a lot of narrative quality to a painting, by just the suggestion that there's another person in the room or something like that. It becomes this whole other story. Okay, yeah, now here's, again, this is one of those more direct studies. And this is fairly small, I mean, you can tell by the size of the easel. It's probably like about a maybe 11 by 14.
Now, could you take that sketch and make it into a, you know, a regular painting? Just keep changing the painting, the values and the light and everything.
No, no, because I mean, and that's you know, that's the point I'm trying to get across to you. It's like, why would you take something that has this much information that's based off the reality of your experience of being there at that point and keep painting on this? Why would you not set this aside, maybe do some thumbnails, color studies, things like that, and begin to figure out, you know, how you can improve this, how you can make a stronger statement, and then do another painting, keeping this intact, so that you have the change in intensity of color from, you know, the point here by her arm across her chest. If you start putting more paint on there while you're sitting in the studio and you're not there and you're not seeing the subtleties of the shift of color and stuff like that, you know, you're going to do something silly and lose a lot of that information in trying to paint what you think ought to be there, because you're not looking at it anymore. So why not put that up on the wall? You know, and then again, you know, do some more work. Like, for example, you know, he did a beautiful job, you know, really capturing the light, you know, the filtered light from that tree, you know, onto her face and then onto, you know, her chest area and stuff like that. All the rest of this is pretty preliminary. And then the proportion, you know, in the arm and the forearm, totally not in sync with the size of the figure, right? And so, you know, to correct that, you know, you might have to make that upper arm a little bit longer, and then that forearm, you're gonna have to change the direction. It's kind of flat going straight forward here. Actually change it to bend it and go back across the body. But that's something he hadn't worked out, see, because he spent his time focusing here. And that's why it's a preliminary. It's a, you know, from life, it's his experience. He didn't get around to figuring it all out. You know, he does the same silly things that all of us do. The difference is that he knew better than to go back in and change this. And he used it, you know, possibly to do a better painting. You know, he learned, you know, he got what he wanted out of it, which was this right here. And all the rest of this, you know, if he goes back in and he decides to do a more final painting, we'll figure all that out. So. Yeah, we saw this. Again, you know, I don't really know how big this is. I would suspect it's not, you know, terribly large. I'm just looking at the brushwork, you know, and I'm kind of thinking, yeah, you know, probably 11 by 14, something like that. Yeah, here's the painting I wanted to really look at. I love this painting. You know, I just, you know, if you look at just the paint surface and how he kind of created and modeled the form, and, you know, the leg here, you know, feels appropriately round, you know, on that outer muscle of the leg. And then you don't really see the inside of the leg, so you don't see that flatter plane. On this, you do, see? You know, he's gone from that rounder part to that part, that the inside of the leg, and how that flattens out across there, that plane, you know, all the way down to the knee. You know, there's this nice broad plane across there. And it really helps describe the form that's there. You know, and there's really a lot of paint. you know, down on that surface. You know, same thing, you know, with the torso. You know, where there's more bone and it's hard closer to the surface, and then where it gets softer and the value falls off, it's not as reflective. Same thing in the arm. See the shoulder, it's more reflective up there, close to where the skin is close to the bone, and then as it moves down the arm, it's not as reflective, it falls off. I'd be very happy with that painting on any day. Oh. If I crank that one out, that would be okay. Here's a close-up of the face on that painting. And it's really beautiful brushwork. It's really nice, very direct. Pretty nice stuff. Yep. Yeah, that's tiny. That's tiny. Yeah. Yeah. Here you kind of get into those psychedelic colors on the skin. Yeah. You want a little turquoise, a little pink, a little bit of orange.
Whatever's in vogue.
Pardon?
Whatever's in vogue. What is in fashion this decade, you know?
Yeah. Well. Yeah.
Turquoise is the color that's in right now, so.
Uh-huh. Yeah. If you look at this though, let's zoom back out on it. Squint your eye down. Do the values still work?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, when you squint your eye down, does her form still feel round?
Oh, yeah.
And like it's got volume, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, see, that's what I keep telling you guys. Color is irrelevant. Okay? Doesn't matter. Could be, look, yellow, pink, orange,
blue,
turquoise, green, you know, grays, purples. They're all there. Okay? They're all there. But they're there, and if you squint your eye down, all the values, regardless of what the color is, are still kind of in sync with each other. See, it's still moving around that arm. It's still moving around the torso. See? And again, it doesn't matter what the color is. It's the value. See? And he turns those forms, you know, using turquoise and pink and, you know, orange and yellow and everything else. And it still works. Still works just fine. See? Now that's a little more conventional, what you would consider, you know, what you might expect a flesh tone to be. Okay. Look at the paint surface on that. You see how the shadows seem smoother and to have less paint on them, and the lights, there's a lot more paint on there, isn't there? Wherever there's, you know, strong light, there's a lot of paint on that surface. Where the shadows are, you know, quite a bit less.
Mm-hmm. I think sometimes he purposely has some of his paint strokes going horizontal, then the other ones will go more vertical.
Uh-huh. Well, generally, I mean, you know, he moves in the direction of the form. You know, what that is right there and why he laid that in there, and I don't know. I find that a little bit distracting right there.
Okay.
You know? And I probably would have like, I'm going to get rid of that.
Looks like a Band-Aid.
Yeah, looks like a Band-Aid or something on her back. You know? So, yeah. But, you know, that's kind of the difference between, you know, him painting and me painting, you know. I would let that bother me, you know. Maybe he doesn't. Again, now, see, this has got to be a more, like, you know, probably direct from life painting, you know, more as a study. And you see, again, you know, he got down the essential things he needed in the time he had. And then if he were going to do more with this, I'm sorry, if he were going to do more with this, you know, then he'd go back and do more studies and drawings and things, figure, you know, more things out, and then go back and do, you know, a finished painting. And this is one of the things I'm trying to get over myself, is that a lot of times, you know, I'll take these little figure paintings that I do, you know, when I go to these live drawing sessions and things, and I'll come back and I'll clean them up. And inevitably what happens is that, you know, I clean them up and then I over tighten them and, you know, mess with them and get ticky with it. And I lose that beautiful kind of very direct feel to the painting. And yeah, I'm trying to get wiser as I get older, you know, trying to learn, you know, and apply what I learned. That's the hard part. So, and again, you know, this is probably a plein air, very direct, never meant to be a finished painting, but it's a good solid study. See? Figure drawing. You can see, you know, the abstraction, you know, in his drawings. You know, he's literally thinking about, you know, how I'm going to simplify, you know, the background areas and the composition around the figure. And you can really see that process at work, you know, in his drawings. Yeah. You know, painting in the studio. His little rocking chair that Claudia pointed out, and,
yes.
You know, a big canvas, you know, waiting to be painted on.
Yeah, I was waiting for the lady to come. His canvas looks that large.
Yeah.
But does he just paint primarily in oil?
Yeah, I think that's primarily his medium. You know, I haven't seen him do any watercolors. I mean, basically, you know, when he draws with charcoal. You know, a kind of a full range, you know, compressed charcoal with vine. And so, you know, it's a very academic, very traditional approach, you know, to drawing. And then his paintings are, as far as I know, are all exclusively, you know, oil paint. You know, I've never seen him mess with acrylic or watercolor, anything like that. Now, how many of you think that this is black? You know, the clothing that he's wearing.
No, it's a lot of blue in it.
Blue, green, purple, brown, you know, muted reds, oranges, you know, right there. Yeah, see, again, you know, even with quote unquote black, it's not black. You know, there's color. You know,
I'm trying to see though where is part of it. I can see the part under the arm that's in shadow. It's the same color, but it's darker.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I was concerned about.
Yeah, dark. Yeah,
color, but it's like it's much darker.
Yeah, it's a much darker value. Really look into there, and you can really begin to see more of the blue or the purple in this than you can in here. And how much more intense that blue or purple is than it is out here. So it's not just straight black. You know, it's not black out of the tube.
Now, it's his ability to be able to look at that coat and see all those different colors in that fabric.
Yeah. And again, you know, this is probably a more finished piece rather than a study. And when you look at it, you know, he's taken some time and done things very deliberately. You know, as far as, you know, putting those colors and temperature shifts and things, you know, within that clothing. You know, and yet left a lot of stuff out that he could have futzed with. I mean, you know, he could have put in like a lot of the folds and, you know, all the little details, you know, particularly, you know, like this arm right here, which is closer to us, coming forward. You know, I mean, if it were me, I would have got all hung up around the folds going around the arm right there with the elbow bent and stuff. You know, and, you know, the arm of that chair and, you know, how the hand is draped over it. But he didn't do that. See, he abstracted it. He just kept it simple. And I mean, Sargent did stuff like that, you know, really beautifully. I think I told you guys the story about, you know, when I went to the National Portrait Gallery and there was a big Sargent exhibition on. And you walk into one of the galleries, and the gallery is probably 300-400 feet long. You know, you're looking down the gallery. And at the end of the gallery, you know, on that back wall was this huge portrait. I mean, this portrait had to be a good 8 feet tall by probably about 4.5, 5 feet wide. And all it was a man, and you really only saw about half of him, because you know, basically he was sitting in a chair, and he had this black coat on, and you know, his shirt, his white shirt, were, you know, you could see the sleeves coming out from under the coat and the collar, and the tie that he had on, but it wasn't a necktie. It's, you know, it was back in the 1800s, and it was this very little thin, almost like ribbon that they would tie, you know, right there. And so it was very like thin, you know, and it was a black tie, you know, and a white shirt. And you could see that, you know, from all the way down at the end of the gallery. And it's like, as you worked your way down the gallery, you know, and you kept looking back there to that back wall as you kind of walked to the next painting, you know, it held together, you know, really well, until you got about probably 25, 30 feet away. And what I realized at that time is there was no hand there. You know, there was no detail in the jacket whatsoever, or the background. I mean, the coat that he was wearing just disappeared right into the background. It was all pretty much almost the same color and value. And that the only area in that painting that was really painted with any degree of accuracy whatsoever was really just the front plane of the face. And everything else was suggestion, you know. The only thing that was there for that hand that was laying, you know, across the arm of the chair and draping down kind of like this guy's hand. I mean, you could see more of the shape of the hand than this with the fingers and things. It was just cadmium orange paint that had just been washed in there at the very beginning of the painting. And Sargent had just gone around and he had painted the coat around it, just leaving sort of the outline of the hand. That's all that was there. There was no other extra paint added to it. There was no highlight, nothing. It was just cadmium orange paint, just straight cad orange paint right out of the tube. No modeling or anything. But when you were back away from that painting, there was a hand there. You know? And it worked perfectly fine. You know, he didn't need to do anything else. You know,
but they didn't have to be displayed in a large facility or a large area.
Yeah, Well, it was probably, you know, it when, you know, that painting was probably commissioned and it was going to hang in some institution. It was going to hang high up on a wall, you know, probably not at eye level, but probably a good 10, 15 feet, you know, above you, on this large wall where nobody would ever get up close to it.
Do you remember when we went to Flax and this Asian gentleman, I believe, came from Woodstock, or he was either up and coming to some place, and he did a demonstration of this painting, and back when you stood back farther away, it was just beautiful. You could see everything.
Yeah, that's
but when you got close, you couldn't. It just like a lot of different colors, just like dots and stuff like that.
Right.
You pick it out.
Yeah, I mean, I've painted hundreds of times with Peter, you know, in a lot of these figure drawing sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, if you get anywhere within, you know, 5 or 6 feet of his paintings, they almost fall apart because it's you know, you see all the paint strokes and just different colors, and then but you step back 8 feet, 10 feet, all of a sudden it just becomes this beautiful, you know, face or figure things. You know, it's like magic. It just like solidifies right there. You know, and you know, the really like the very best painters through all, well, you know, pretty much so from the Impressionist period forward, if you really look at them, you know, they all do that. You know, they don't look like much when you're up close to them.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about, you know, rendering and technique. It's about getting those fundamentals, you know, correct, value and contrast. Another person to look at is Scott Christensen, who does a lot of landscapes. Now he works on a very large scale, but you know, you look at his work and it's not a real fine polished surface. It's, you know, kind of like this guy Hollis Dunlop. You know, there's a lot of paint, there's a lot of activity. You know, you see a lot of, you know, very direct brush work. You know, you really see how it's constructed, you know, when you're up close to it. And he's not trying to give you an illusion, you know, or you know, hide in any way the process that he was using. You know, so it's very true, you know. I mean, you step right up there, you know exactly what he did and how he layered the paint and stuff on it. And then you step back from it and it's just like all falls together into this, you know, absolutely accurate, realistic image. You know.
What is Peter's last name?
Ho, H-O.
That's easy enough.
Yeah. Yeah, he's, I haven't seen him I haven't seen many people in the last year and a half. In fact, I haven't seen him back. I've been going down to a couple of the Saturday sessions at the Atlanta Artist Center, and I haven't seen him down there. So I really don't know where he's off to. But as far as I know, he's still here in the area. But yeah, wonderful painter. You know,
the Quinn Museum up in Gainesville has an art exhibit of oils for, I guess, for a couple of weeks. I think it's already started about a week ago, so it might go for about a month. But it's just primarily oil paintings, which is
okay.
I haven't been there for this one. I was there for the pastels and the sculptures, but not for the other, not this yet.
Yeah, I went over to it was kind of when we first started this, I had gone over to Quinlan and photographed a show over there and showed it, you know, in one of the classes. You know, that's a beautiful art center, and it's you know, it's a great venue. And they have a lot of good artwork go through there. So yeah, if you ever get a chance and you're out and about, definitely check that place out. You know, that's probably on my top 10 list for places to go, you know, and look at artwork.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we need to talk about that sometime. I guess, wow, we're way over time. Okay. Anyway, what'd you guys think of Hollis Dunlap?
I think he's a very talented and diverse artist.
Okay. Did that inspire anybody to get your paint out and start slapping paint down?
Well, what I might do is look at him again and look more closely at some of his stuff, and then maybe do something. Yes, we'll see.
That level of commitment there. Kind of, get me to.
Well, what happens, you get up to go paint and something else happens, you know. I don't have to tell you, you know.
Yeah, life is a distraction, I know. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But I'll be letting you know so we can talk about it, you know.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah. We have lots of opportunities to do that.
Okay.
Okay. So it's 12:15 and probably time for you guys to go have lunch. And we will be back here tomorrow at 2:00. Okay. So if you've been working on something, if you've been thinking about working on something, if you've seen something that has inspired you to work on something, send me something. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you all for hanging in there. The last 5, 6, 7 of you. All right. We'll see you tomorrow.